Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair, and welcome back to...
The Summer of Arnold Schwarzenegger!
Which means I'm still reviewing movies from the mid-'80s and loving every minute of it. Such as today's film, Commando, where Arnold stars as John Matrix, a commando. This movie released the same year as Rambo First Blood Part 2, and helped to fuel the idea of a rivalry between Stallone and Schwarzenegger as action movie icons of the 80s. First Blood Part 2 also did significantly better at the box office, so don't think of Stallone as the underdog in this little tale. But that's not to say that Commando is terrible, necessarily. The basic idea is simple. Matrix is retired, but bad guys gonna be bad guys. One thing leads to another, and suddenly he finds himself on a quest to save his daughter. Also, he may or may not kill over 100 people along the way. You're gonna need one of those tally counters to keep track of the body count in this movie, but anyway, let's take a look at Commando and see how well it holds up today. Our story begins on Garbage Day.
I was afraid you'd miss me. Don't worry. You won't.
Okay, so we're dealing with assassins who are secretly murdering people who have been in hiding for years, and the best, most low-key way they think to go about this is by going through all the trouble to acquire a garbage truck, and then just shoot the motherfucker in broad daylight, and hope that nobody asks any questions. Not only that, but in all of these events we see this one man, Cook, played by Bill Duke, you know, Mac from Predator. He also managed to somehow smuggle the gas and keys into a car dealership, easily taking out his target who jumps in front of the moving vehicle. And finally, there's one last parting gift at sea. An artistic transition. Involving incendiary devices and homicide, but you take the good with the bad. This transition brings us to the marching feet and bulging muscles of Arnold Schwarzenegger, playing the role of John Matrix, who's out taking his log for a walk. But what's this? He is being slowly snuck up upon by his loving daughter! This would be Jenny, played by a very young Alyssa Milano. They share such joys as eating ice cream, wearing ice cream, catching fish, throwing daughters, and making extremely dated pop culture references.
Why not they just call him Girl George? It will cut down all the confusion, I think.
Oh, Dad, that's so old.
Why don't you at least get annoyed at Marilyn Manson? They're a lot more relevant nowadays. Arnold getting annoyed at kids on his damn lawn will have to wait, though, as a military helicopter parks in his damn driveway. This introduces General Kirby, played by James Olsen. You know, he's a good guy, because he's not even mad when Matrix pulls his gun on him, finger on the trigger and everything. Of course, this may be because they've got bigger issues to deal with.
Someone's killing your men.
You gave them new identities.
There must have been a leak.
Must have. We flew helicopters to all their homes and double-checked to make sure that nobody knew that they were ex-military. Whatever the case may be, John Matrix was such a badass his team made enemies with the whole world, and Kirby fears that John will be next. To prevent this from happening, he's enlisted 2 goons to give him a false sense of security. Also, to keep things exciting when this happens. Of course, you can't have your action hero killed off in the first 10 minutes of the movie, but giving someone for the bad guys to exterminate at least gives them some sort of false sense of competence. But how was Matrix able to evade them so easily?
You're downwind. The air current may tip them off. Downwind? You think I can smell them coming? I did.
To put it as simply as possible, Schwarzenegger has Seagal powers in this movie. And it's not exactly, but it's so damn close, I can't believe it's not Seagal powers. With that in mind, while Kelly runs and hides in her room, Schwarzenegger heads out to the shed to load up and kick some ass. Problem is, he's just slightly too late to catch the bad guys before they kidnap his daughter.
And if you want your kid back, then you gotta cooperate. Right?
Wrong.
Because fuck your limited dialogue options. Hell, that was the way I had the most fun in Fallout New Vegas. With that in mind, Arnold doesn't care that the plot says his vehicle has been sabotaged. Just give it a good push downhill and he can easily catch up to the baddies with their unnecessarily motorized cars. However, even he can't avoid unskippable cutscenes that say that somehow despite all this, yes, he gets captured because the movie has something important to say.
Bennett, I thought you were...
Dead? You thought wrong.
Well, you can't really blame the guy. Movie shows you on a boat, 1 second later, boom, boat blows up. Either the movie lied to us or you built up a resistance over the years by eating fireworks. One tranquilizer dart later and we suddenly teleport to a deep, dark warehouse wherein Arnold is informed that he's been hired for a new job, to kill a foreign president, so Arias, played by Dan Hedaya, can become the new president. His payment for the job? They won't kill his daughter.
If you kill President Velasquez, I will send her back to you. If you try anything else, I will mail her to you in pieces.
Free overnight shipping. Any homicidal maniac worth his salt knows to do all his business through Amazon Prime. So Bennett, played by Vernon Wells, brings Matrix to the airport along with the cronies to ensure he gets on the plane and arrives at his destination. One last thing before he leaves, though.
Hey, hold it. I'll be back, Bennett.
I'll be back. And then it's hasta la vista, baby. Fuck you, asshole. It's not a tumor! But it's not all that bad. The goons have done Matrix the favor of at least springing for a first-class seat, and Sully, played by David Patrick Kelly, even seems interested in providing a few creature comforts.
Have some beers in Valverde, Matrix. It'll give everyone a little more time with your daughter.
You're a funny guy, Sully. I like you. That's why I'm going to kill you last.
First, I'm going to have my way with you. Not quite yet, though, as Sully is needed to call the big bad boss and keep Jenny Matrix alive at least that much longer. Thus, John boards the plane with Henriquez, played by Charles Meshack, following all his orders faithfully.
Your film. Your flight attendants are Susan and Lance, and I'm Vic. We're here to make your trip as comfortable as possible. Thank you and have a safe and enjoyable flight.
And what a considerate passenger he is, giving the goon his pillow so they can rest his corpse. Quickly, he disguises the body as best he can and acquires information on the length of the flight, 11 hours. Also,
don't disturb my friend, he's dead tired.
Probably didn't even need the cover one-liner though, considering how many airline meals I've missed for daring to be a little exhausted after a 12-hour layover. Now comes step 2 of his plan. Convince the stewardess he's airsick despite them not even having taken off yet, so that he may sneak into the luckily alarm-free cargo bay, depressurizing the plane as he breaks out onto the landing gear. Amazingly enough, this was right after Sully left to confirm the takeoff went as planned, without Matrix having any way of knowing his timing was perfect. When it comes to his escape, though... For some reason, he waited until the plane was going really fucking fast and way up into the air before he jumped off into shallow water, which would probably fucking kill him and is way more riskier than just tumbling onto the tarmac at ground level. As John runs across the runway to sneak back into the airport, we get confirmation that absolutely nobody has noticed any of this yet, with the usurper getting his call telling him everything is A-OK.
Well, we are right on schedule. With any good fortune, today will be my last day as a civilian.
This is my last chance to break out into song and sing. I just can't wait to be king! We all see that Schwarzenegger is heading back in the airport as a means to track down Sully, but said goon has his sights set on the babe for this movie, Cindy, played by Ray Dawn Chong. Not that she's interested in his incessant advances, but this is just another means to establish that Sully is a creep and an asshole.
Aw, you don't know what you're missing.
From here, it looks like a nightmare. Would you please leave me alone?
You fucking whore.
All that, and he doesn't have the strongest grasp on language. That's like trying to insult the apathetic by calling them a tryhard. Her day arguably gets worse when Matrix gets a hold of her, tearing the passenger seat out of her convertible and demanding she follow Sully. All of this while providing her very little information as to what he is after in all of this.
Are you gonna kill me or something?
No.
I suppose you wouldn't tell me if you were.
Sure I will.
Really?
Trust me.
The only reason I wouldn't is if I couldn't figure out a way to word it into a cheesy one-liner. The pursuit eventually brings them to a shopping mall where Sully has arrived to do his usual bad guy shady business deals. At this point, Schwarzenegger drops the bomb about his daughter being kidnapped, and she will be killed unless Cindy helps him by doing exactly as he says.
Follow him. Tell him you're crazy about him. Try to bring him over here, and I will do the rest. You can go back to your normal life. Got it?
No.
Please, help me.
It might work better if he didn't come off as a terrifying, overly complicated wingman. Because instead of helping the man, she finds the first security guard she can and tells them that a paranoid maniac kidnapped her and is waiting outside the bar for her. This makes it considerably harder for John to keep from being noticed when he ends up in a brawl with the mall security, right when Sully tries to make the moves on Cindy again.
Matrix. Give me a quarter. Give me a quarter.
I understand this movie is from a medieval period before cell phones existed, really, but still, that goon is relatively well off, right? And he was using a payphone earlier today. Was he only carrying the 1 quarter? With that, any and all attempts to let this matter settle peaceably get thrown right out the window as Arnold, trying to keep Sully from calling his boss, results in a good old-fashioned shootout. Don't let the fact that Schwarzenegger doesn't have a gun and isn't the one killing people left and right mean the security guards will actually take his side, though.
Stop or shoot!
But action hero Cindy saves the day from the situation she herself caused, but I can forgive her. I want to see that boobage. Unfortunately, this means she has been upgraded from hapless side character to sidekick. Not a bad thing in and of itself, but she has also taken the role of the comic relief.
Are you gonna tell me what's going on or what?
No.
No! No!
Which also isn't necessarily a bad thing, except for the fact that the filmmakers seem to think that a woman screaming about how unbelievable these situations are is fucking hilarious. So she screams a lot while Schwarzenegger chases down Sully, eventually causing the bad guy to lose control of his vehicle and flip in the middle of the road. One easily survived head-on collision later, and it's time for the interrogation.
Sally.
Kiss my ass.
I can't hear you.
I'll say it a little louder than get fucked.
Well, if you're gonna say something else, at least actually say it louder like you said you were gonna. So they moved the interrogation to somewhere a bit more scenic. This turns out to be pointless, though, as Schwarzenegger already figured out where Sully was going anyway.
Remember, Sally, when I promised to kill you last?
That's right, Major. You did.
I lied.
First, I'm going to kill you, and then I'm going to have my way with you. The key on Sully's person and the fact that he was going to meet Cook somewhere was all that Matrix needed to know to head to the hotel. Along the way, he finally takes the time to slowly and methodically explain the plot of the movie to Cindy, that his daughter was kidnapped so that he would assassinate a foreign president in return for her safety.
I knew they would kill her, even if I did it. My only chance now is that I get to her before they find out what I'm doing.
I'm going to drive all over the city and capture each and every last Pokemon gym they have. After arriving at the hotel, the two of them waste no time trying to find some clue as to Jenny Matrix's whereabouts. But before they can, Cook shows up. Thus, Cindy makes with some boobage so as to distract him, so that he and Matrix can fight, and she can sit back and comment on what's going on.
The Green Beret's gonna kick your big ass.
I eat green berets for breakfast.
And right now, I'm very hungry.
I can't believe this macho bullshit.
Allegedly, though, most of the quips here were actually ad-libbed, so I don't get to blame the writer for this one. Director and editor, though, I'm looking at you. Unfortunately, it seems that beating the ever-loving fuck out of somebody isn't always the best way to procure information out of them, and Cook is impaled well before they find out anything useful. However, he did drive here, and searching his car, we find out that Cindy's piloting experience is actually coming in handy when it comes to the search for clues.
What is this?
Coastal is a fuel depot that supplies planes.
To whom? The airlines?
Usually smaller, private aircraft.
They also do birthdays and bar mitzvahs. With the receipt in hand, they head down to the warehouses to find out if John's daughter is being held there. They have an impressive array of munitions and armored vehicles, but not so much in the field of aircraft or young daughters. However, they have a handy-dandy map room with coordinates for an island in the Pacific. It's at this point Cindy figures that she should bother to mention the other little tidbit of information she could tell from the fuel receipt.
Type 4 fuel is amphibian.
Except it isn't. Now, there are amphibious planes that do take that kind of fuel, but fuel itself is neither terrestrial nor amphibious. It's fuel. Water gets in the engine, it'll fail either way. With this inaccurate information at their fingertips, they surmise the location of the bad guy's plane at the other warehouse, and with that in mind, shopping spree! The kind of shopping that involves breaking into a military surplus store and eating all those guns that are only ever stocked in gun shops to be sold to civilians in Hollywood movies.
What's that?
Rocket launcher. Go!
Hell, if it were this easy to acquire weapons classified as destructive devices, I'd do my daily commute in a Sherman. Unfortunately, midnight bulldozer shopping sprees are frowned upon by law enforcement, and thus, Matrix is taken into custody. Thing is, Cindy slipped through the cracks, and she still has the motherfucking rocket launcher! That's how you do it. You gotta work up a good multiplier on your rocket frenzies before you go for the high-scoring targets. Don't worry, she gets him with the next shot, and while the explosion rocked the seats and dazed the cops, Brick Shithouse Schwarzenegger is relatively unscathed. Thus, they continue their quest to reach the warehouse by the docks, find the bad guy's spare airplane, and utilize Cindy's handy-dandy piloting skills to spring into action.
Oh no.
What's wrong?
This isn't a plane. This is a canoe with wings.
Well, then get in and start paddling.
Enough money and influence to build a private army and take over a small nation, yet for some reason their air force is on loan from North Korea. This gives the illusion of danger when the bad guys realize their flying boat's about to get jacked, but don't you worry. This is one of those magical shootouts where neither side knows how to hit anything up until the airplane actually starts, then boom, both bad guys are dead. Now the only danger in the skies is Cindy screaming about how scared of everything she is, and Bill Paxton contacting them over radar to let them know the area is restricted.
You must contact General Franklin Kirby.
You must first change course or you risk being shot down. Acknowledge.
It's Schwarzenegger with Seagal powers. I'm pretty sure he could just stand out on the wings of the airplane like Sonic and punch the shots away. Instead, though, they just fly under the radar, easily masking their position from anyone who might play a game of catch the flak. This means John Matrix can finally reach the island his daughter is being held at, around the same time his earlier flight finished its 11-hour journey. Ah, well, they never said that they had the same destination. Now Schwarzenegger can get naked and head in as a lone commando.
Don't break radio silence until they see me.
How will I know?
Because all fucking hell is gonna break loose.
Old Testament, Cindy. Real wrath of God type stuff. Fire and brimstone raining down from the skies. The rivers and seas boiling. 40 years of darkness. Earthquakes, tornadoes, the dead rising from their graves. Human sacrifice. Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria! Thus, utilizing his titty muscles, Schwarzenegger rows to the shore and gets ready for battle. Am I the only one who thinks this is how all fashion shows should be edited? We're still going to take a while to set up the climax, though, as Matrix has to set up a ton of Claymore mines, and our usurper-to-be is just now learning that the man wasn't on the plane when it arrived. Also, gotta take care of those pesky guards.
Come sta?
With knives and knife-like instruments. That way, it's a stealth kill, no matter how loud they scream. For the most part, people don't notice until this happens. Gotta admit, I'd be surprised too if someone blew up my houses from the inside by setting up shrapnel-based mines around the perimeter. Also, turning my soldiers into mannequins is just low. Thus, the epic climactic shootout is underway. With that, Jenny escapes her confines, but stays well within enemy sight so as to still be in clear and present danger. And all the goons come out to shoot Schwarzenegger down. Unfortunately for them, John Matrix is an action hero and therefore doesn't need to worry about reloading or even bothering to aim. And to avoid the wrath of the Content ID bot, I even removed a few seconds of him firing from that example, but trust me, not a mag swap in sight. At least he does occasionally change to another weapon after firing damn near 40 rounds out of a 20-round magazine. Also, despite having Seagal powers deep down, John Matrix is still Arnold Schwarzenegger. Which means he can be injured. By a grenade that the movie already established less than a minute ago is lethal at that range, but to be honest with you, if he can shrug off a rocket, I'm surprised that he even noticed the blast. This is how things continue for a while. Schwarzenegger is damn near unstoppable, but suffers just enough damage so that over the course of the battle he gets dirtier and more shirtless, thus making him look far more badass as he mows down legions of bad guys. That's all well and good, but he's still got to rescue his daughter.
Jenny! Jenny!
Jenny, what have I told you about inviting people over without telling me? It's not safe. At the very least, he does manage to track down the bad guy's boss and blows him away with a bountiful bouquet of buckshot. That doesn't answer the question of where his daughter is, though.
Jenny!
Daddy?
No. Not Daddy.
Just a roid rage and Freddie Mercury. This means it's down to Bennett and a tired, injured, backed into a corner John Matrix. Of course, just shooting the good guy and rolling the credits would make for a very disappointing final confrontation, so Schwarzenegger convinces the man to enjoy killing him in melee combat. As Bennett is batshit crazy, this works, and they lock horns in a duel to the death. Things look bad when Bennett pushes Matrix towards the hot Bernie place, but what's this? John turns it around and starts pushing him into the hot Bernie place. Not sure it would have worked anyway, considering high voltage electrocution doesn't even slow Bennett down, but impaling him seems to do the trick.
Let off some steam, Bennett.
Oh, Daddy, you're so funny when you kill people. Therefore, happy ending! Everyone is dead. Like every single enemy on the map. Kirby asks John if there's anything for them, and he straight tells him, just bodies. Oh, well, at least General Kirby can take this opportunity to bring up some sequel bait, talking about Matrix reforming his unit, because the world still needs his skills.
No chance.
And they actually did not ruin the good name of this movie through countless shitty sequels. It wasn't for lack of trying, though, it's just for one reason or another, they never really made it past the planning stages. Anyway, that was Commando. It's okay. Commando doesn't do anything horribly, but there's not much that it does particularly great either. Mostly, it gives a decent presentation for good action set in an okay story. It can be fun and certainly enjoyable for fans of the genre, but it's not the kind of movie to really wow you. The overall feel is very much like a Seagal movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. John Matrix is a legendary badass with superhuman powers that allow him to casually mow down scores of armed and trained hostile forces. As fun as that can be, it does make it less exciting when it doesn't even attempt to maintain any suspension of disbelief and entertain the idea that the good guy is even capable of losing. Despite that, the cast of characters were not bad. Each had a distinct personality and mannerisms, and even though I found Cindy's scream at anything that moves method of personification less than enjoyable, fortunately it didn't permeate every action scene in the movie. Overall, Commando is an entertaining action movie with plenty of gunfire, explosions, and a body count that just won't quit. It's not high-class art, but it isn't trying to be, and that's okay. It's still a nice way to spend an afternoon while taking care of your surplus popcorn supply, coming in at 3 reverse-propelled grenades out of 5. And it's not bad, but I can't really think of anyone outside of really hardcore action fans who would say that it just speaks to them. Thank you all for watching. I've been Dr. Shado. And remember, neither the police nor the judicial system really cares how witty your one-liners are.
Did anybody ever tell you you have a lot of hostility?